Have you ever taken a trip to a new city only to realize almost immediately that it was a huge mistake? Luckily, if that happens, you can usually just pack up and head back home. But what if you move to a whole new country and perhaps even on a different continent? For some, that bold decision of starting over abroad has turned into a huge regret. In this video, we'll dive into the top 10 countries people regret moving to in 2024. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates from our channel. Let's kick it off with some of the destinations that might not live up to the dream many imagine. The ranking may surprise you, and number 1 might leave you shocked. But let's get started with the first 3. Starting off at number 10, we have France. Many people move here dreaming of the picturesque life, cafes, beautiful architecture, and a slower, romantic pace. But for a lot of expatriates, the reality is different. One of the biggest issues is how hard it can be to integrate with the locals, especially in larger cities. People often say the famous French hospitality can feel a bit shallow. In places like Paris, the locals might not be as warm or welcoming as one might expect. This cultural gap, combined with a language barrier, makes life more complicated for newcomers. French is a difficult language to master, and if you aren't already fluent, you'll likely face misunderstandings in daily interactions, from simple grocery shopping to dealing with official matters. Speaking of official matters, French bureaucracy is notorious. The administrative processes here can feel never-ending, and it's incredibly frustrating for someone who isn't used to the complex paperwork. Every little thing from setting up utilities to filing taxes comes with long lines and confusing rules. For many expatriates, the stress of dealing with these bureaucratic hurdles becomes a major source of regret. And then there's the cost of living. In big cities like Paris, rent is sky high, and even everyday expenses like dining out or buying groceries can eat up your budget faster than you'd think. Although France's healthcare system is often praised, it isn't exactly cheap, which adds to the financial pressure. All of this combined leaves many expats feeling isolated and financially strained, far from the dream they imagined. Coming in at number 9 is Brazil. At first glance, Brazil offers a lot of appeal. There's the stunning natural beauty, the vibrant culture, and the welcoming vibe that draws people in. But once you settle down, things can start to feel very different. One of the biggest issues expats face in Brazil is safety. Crime rates are high, particularly in urban areas, and personal safety becomes a daily concern. While you might be enchanted by the beaches and the friendly locals, you constantly have to be aware of your surroundings, and for many, this becomes exhausting. Another major issue is the cost of living. A lot of people think that living in Brazil will be cheap, but that's no longer the case. Housing prices have skyrocketed in major cities, and other basic expenses aren't far behind. You'll find that Brazil can be just as expensive as cities like London, but with far fewer conveniences in terms of infrastructure or reliable services. High taxes drive up the prices of almost everything, making it tough to get by, especially when wages don't match the cost of living. To make things even harder, if you don't speak Portuguese, you'll struggle to get through day-to-day life. English is rare, and not being able to communicate adds to the isolation many expats feel. For people moving here expecting an affordable, carefree lifestyle, the reality is a lot harder to manage. Next up, at number 8, is the United Kingdom. The UK is known for its rich history, cultural diversity, and world-class cities, but for some expats, the move doesn't quite live up to the dream. A major complaint is the weather. It's hard to adjust to the cold, damp climate, especially if you're used to sunshine. The constant gray skies and rain can really put a damper on daily life and outdoor activities, leaving some people feeling cooped up and restless. Another big issue in the UK is the cost of living. Over the last year, prices for essentials like food, gas, and energy have shot up, and for many families, this makes budgeting incredibly difficult. Rent is notoriously high, particularly in cities like London, where the housing market is fiercely competitive. Buying a home can feel like a distant dream, and many expats find themselves stuck renting for years. On top of that, access to healthcare can be complicated. The NHS, while widely praised, is often overburdened, and getting timely medical attention can be frustrating. The combination of high living costs, challenging weather, and a struggle for work-life balance leaves many expats wishing they had chosen a different destination. At number 7, we have the United States. Known as the land of opportunity, the US draws people from all over the world with the promise of a better life, but for many expats, the reality can be harsh. One of the most frequently cited issues is crime, especially in urban areas. Gun violence, in particular, is a major concern, and it's something that many expats aren't prepared for. You'll often hear about it in the news, and while it may not affect everyone's daily life, it's a persistent worry that leaves some regretting their move. Then there's the cost of living. While the US offers great economic opportunities, cities like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles are among the most expensive in the world. Housing costs in these areas can be astronomical, making it difficult for newcomers to afford the lifestyle they imagined. On top of rent or mortgage payments, things like healthcare are a huge huge financial burden. Unlike many countries that offer national health care, the US relies on private insurance, and without it, medical costs can spiral out of control. Even with insurance, out-of-pocket expenses can be overwhelming, adding to the overall financial stress. Another challenge is the country's size. The US is massive, and public transportation is often limited outside major cities, making it difficult to get around without a car. This is a far cry from places where public transport is more reliable, meaning that newcomers need to factor in the cost of owning and maintaining a vehicle. Additionally, racial tensions in some areas have been a source of regret for some expats who didn't expect to face such deeply rooted social issues in their day-to-day lives. All of these factors combine to make the American dream less achievable than it may seem from the outside. Next, at number 6, we have Canada. Often viewed as a peaceful, welcoming country with breathtaking landscapes and a high quality of life, it may come as a surprise that many expats end up regretting their decision to move here. One of the biggest complaints is the immigration process. It's not as straightforward as many people hope, with long waiting times and confusing paperwork, making it a stressful experience from the get-go. Once you do settle in, the cost of living can be another shock. Housing prices in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver have surged to unbelievable heights, with average home prices reaching nearly $850,000. This is a huge leap compared to what you might pay in many parts of the US or other countries, and for newcomers, it makes owning property feel nearly impossible. Even renting can be prohibitively expensive, and when you add in the cost of utilities, groceries, and healthcare, it's easy to see why many people feel financially squeezed. On top of the financial challenges, the weather is another big factor driving expat regret. Winters in Canada can be brutal, with temperatures plummeting far below freezing in many areas. If you're not used to snowstorms and months of icy conditions, adjusting to life in Canada can be tough. The cold, combined with the need for a car due to inadequate public transportation in many cities, adds to the list of reasons why people find it difficult to settle in here. Coming in at number 5 is China. Moving to China presents a unique set of challenges that many expats find overwhelming. One of the biggest hurdles is the language barrier. While some expats may have a basic understanding of Mandarin, the language is notoriously difficult to master, and many people struggle with daily communication. Outside of major cities like Beijing and Shanghai, finding someone who speaks fluent English can be rare, making it hard for newcomers to navigate daily life. Simple things like shopping, getting around, or even asking for directions can become major obstacles. Cultural differences also play a huge role in the difficulties expats face in China. The work culture, for instance, is extremely demanding. Long hours and a lack of work-life balance are common complaints, and it can be a major adjustment for those coming from countries where personal time is more valued. The fast pace of work, combined with expectations of loyalty and commitment, can take a toll on personal well-being. Many expats find it hard to keep up with these demands, leading to burnout and frustration. On top of the cultural and language challenges, air pollution is a serious issue in many parts of China. The rapid industrialization has led to significant environmental degradation, and cities like Beijing are often blanketed in thick smog. For those with respiratory conditions or anyone sensitive to pollution, the air quality can make daily life uncomfortable, and in some cases, unhealthy. Healthcare, while available, can also be hit or miss. Many medical facilities are outdated, and expats often report that the quality of care isn't up to the standards they're used to back home. All of this contributes to a sense of isolation and dissatisfaction for those who move to China expecting an easier transition. Finally, at number 4, we have Belarus. For many expats, especially those from Western countries, moving to Belarus can be a culture shock. One of the primary reasons people regret moving here is the lack of personal freedoms. Belarus has a highly restrictive political environment with limited freedom of speech and expression. This can be stifling for those who are used to more open, democratic societies. Many expats feel uncomfortable expressing their opinions or getting involved in local politics for fear of backlash or even legal repercussions. The language barrier is another significant challenge. In Belarus, Russian and Belarusian are the main languages, and very few people speak English, especially outside the capital city of Minsk. This makes everyday interactions difficult, and many expats find it hard to connect with locals or integrate into society. On top of that, the harsh winter climate is another factor that drives regret. Temperatures regularly drop below freezing, and the long, dark winters can be mentally and physically exhausting for those not used to such extreme conditions. Belarus also ranks poorly on personal rights indices, and for expats accustomed to more freedom, the lack of rights and political instability can be unsettling. Moreover, the country's use of capital punishment further adds to the cultural differences that many Western expats find difficult to accept. All of this makes Belarus a challenging place to live, and it's no surprise that many who move here end up reconsidering their decision. At number 3 is Vietnam. While Vietnam offers breathtaking landscapes and incredible food, life here isn't always easy for expats. One of the major complaints is the air pollution, especially in cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. The air quality can be so poor that you'll often see people wearing masks, and for those who are sensitive to pollution or have respiratory issues, it becomes a daily struggle. The litter problem is also widespread. Despite Vietnam's natural beauty, many beaches and parks are marred by trash, which detracts from the country's charm. Another challenge is corruption, something that expats encounter more often than they might expect. Whether it's bribery during routine processes, such as renewing a visa or paying a fine, these experiences leave many feeling frustrated and disillusioned. The language barrier is also tough to overcome. Vietnamese is a tonal language, making it particularly difficult to learn for foreigners. While some locals may speak basic English, communication can still be tricky, especially outside of tourist areas. This can make even simple tasks feel overwhelming, adding to the sense of isolation. Additionally, cultural differences in Vietnam, like the pace of life and societal norms, can leave some expats feeling disconnected and out of place, making it harder to adapt. Next at number 2 is Mexico. Despite its vibrant culture and generally lower cost of living compared to many Western countries, Mexico poses several challenges for expats. Safety is a major concern. Crime rates, particularly in certain regions and border towns, can be high, with issues like theft and pickpocketing being common. Expats often find themselves adjusting to a heightened sense of caution in their day-to-day lives, which can become exhausting over time. While the cost of living is lower than in places like the US or Europe, some expats are surprised to find that prices for essentials, such as rent, groceries, and utilities, are not as cheap as expected. This can create a financial strain that wasn't anticipated before the move. Corruption is another significant issue that expats encounter in Mexico. Bribery, especially when dealing with law enforcement or government officials, is not uncommon. This can be unsettling for those who are not used to such practices. Moreover, Mexico ranks low on the Global Peace Index, signaling that crime and violence are persistent problems in the country. While many expats enjoy the vibrant lifestyle and the affordability in comparison to their home countries, the safety concerns and corruption leave many regretting their decision to settle here. Finally, coming in at number 1 is Japan. Japan is often seen as a dream destination, with its rich culture, advanced technology, and picturesque cities like Tokyo and Kyoto. But for many expats, the reality of living in Japan comes with some tough adjustments. One of the biggest challenges is the work culture. Japan has a reputation for its intense dedication to work, and long hours are the norm. Expats often struggle to find a healthy work-life balance, as the expectations to stay late and show loyalty to employers can be overwhelming. This can take a toll on personal well-being and is a major reason why many people regret their decision to move here. The language barrier is also significant. While some people assume they'll be able to get by with English, especially in larger cities, the truth is that Japanese is essential for day-to-day interactions. English proficiency is quite low outside of certain tourist areas, making it difficult for expats to navigate daily life without learning the language. And Japanese is notoriously difficult to master, with its complex writing system and nuances that can take years to fully understand. Cultural differences also make adjusting to life in Japan harder than expected. There's a strong emphasis on maintaining social harmony and avoiding confrontation, which can feel restrictive for foreigners who are used to more direct communication. Hierarchical relationships, especially in professional settings, add another layer of complexity. The intense politeness and unspoken social rules can be hard to interpret, leaving many expats feeling like they never fully fit in. Additionally, small lifestyle factors, like the widespread use of squat toilets or the fact that smoking is still allowed in many restaurants, can be sources of discomfort for newcomers. These seemingly minor details add up over time, contributing to a sense of unease for many expats. Although Japan is a beautiful and fascinating country, the combination of work pressures, language barriers, and cultural differences leaves many expats feeling isolated and out of place. And there you have it, the top 10 countries where people regret moving to in 2024. If you're considering moving abroad, remember that every place has its own unique set of challenges. It's important to do thorough research, prepare for cultural differences, and think about what you truly want from your new life. But now, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Have you ever considered moving to one of these countries? Or do you have your own experience living abroad that you'd like to share? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Your experiences might help someone else make the right decision.